So you just found out about MiniOS and you're not entirely sure what to expect or what's so unique about the operating system. Well, first and foremost, it's not meant to be a daily driver. It's mostly meant for data recovery or just having a mobile or portable operating system for you to use in the case that a hard drive fails or you have to move computers. Um, I personally wouldn't recommend keeping any kind of sensitive information on it or staying logged into any kind of websites in the browsers because that information, if you install it correctly, will be persistent in between sessions. But what I'd like to do is just kind of run through some of the unique features for MiniOS, and then once you've kind of added what you wanted, how to re-roll it into your own ISO so it can be saved for later, and also just keeping your final USB or your final hard drive install a little bit safer from prying eyes. So first and foremost, um, we're just going to go through the module basics. All of the programs installed on MiniOS by default are packaged into compressed modules, and one of the tools that they have included is apt to SB, which is going to allow us to turn an apt install, which is the default way you would install software, into one of these modules. So we're going to open a terminal, and we're just going to sudo apt update. This is going to refresh all of the lists of programs we can install. And now we're going to navigate to the modules folder. So open a file manager. We're going to go to File System, Run, init ramfs, Memory, Data, MiniOS. This is where all of the base modules are going to be stored, and all the modules we're going to be adding to the install will be in this folder. So we'll go ahead and open up modules, and for your sake and for anybody planning on doing this a lot or doing it later, go ahead and bookmark this folder so it shows up in the places for later. But once we're here, go ahead and right click and open a terminal, and we're going to try our first apt to SB. So I personally like Audacious for listening to music, and one of the extra packages that I make sure is installed is Audacious plugins. So if we do sudo apt to SB install Audacious plugins, can't spell. What this is going to do is create a .sb file, which is a module that is just going to be named after the first program that you're installing using this string. So if it's, apt install GIMP plugins, yada yada yada, or LibreOffice and a bunch of other stuff, it's always going to be the first name. So in this case, it's going to be Audacious. So we'll hit enter again. This is going to bring in all of the information like it's going to normally install using apt. And once it's done, it's going to take that directory and compress it down into a module so it takes up less space in the drive. It also helps it read a little bit faster. All right. So now another thing that I like to install is Falcon, which is a web browser that was made by that's been developed now by the KDE team. It's part of their core software, and it has a kind of weird quirk when it comes to apt to SB, which is if you don't install all the recommended packages with it, if you just do sudo apt to SB install Falcon, something is missing from the module that doesn't allow it to run correctly, especially when you end up making a custom ISO. So in cases like this, if you ever try out a program and it doesn't work, you'll probably have to run this instead. So it'll be sudo apt to SB install. But now we're going to do ---- install --recommends. And now we're going to type our package name. This is going to pull in a few more dependencies and packages that might be needed for it to run correctly when it's fully bundled together like this. So now that these are done, we want to reboot so that these modules are loaded in, and we want to check to make sure they work. All right. So now we're just going to go to start. We'll type in Falcon. Usually takes about 5 seconds to load. There we go. So we can see that Falcon works correctly. And now we will also check Audacious. And we can see that that's opening as well. So you can do this to your heart's content, install whatever programs you need. And now, if you want to make your own custom ISO, we can also remove any modules we might not need. So if you ended up installing a completely different browser, we can remove the Firefox module so that's not taking up space in the ISO. So you can go back to that modules, go back one folder to MiniOS, and here we need to delete firefox.sb. This is a root protected file, so either you can go into terminal directly and type out the commands to remove it, or you can choose to open Thunar as a root user and then delete it that way. But since we're already here, we'll just open terminal and we'll type in sudo rm, and then we'll start typing in the name of the Firefox module, which starts with 05. We can hit tab, which is going to autocomplete it, and hit enter. Now you can see that Firefox is no longer there. And inside of our modules, we still have our two Audacious and Falcon SBs. So now for the other fun little tool that they've included, SB to ISO takes all of the modules that you've created and any changes that you've made and rolls it into a new ISO based on the system plus your changes. So in this case, we'll do sudo SB to ISO, and then we'll do 2 hyphens and name to give it a name, and in this case, we'll make it personal.iso. This is just going to grab all your changes, add it to the current one, and then spit out a new one. There we go. So now we can check in the home folder. We've got our personal.iso. It is 933 megabytes, with the original being about 800. And now I'm going to turn this virtual machine off, eject the drive entirely, and then try and boot from this personal ISO so that we can install from it. Be right back. All right. So now that we're back in, we're going to just retest the programs that we installed to make sure they're working. Obviously, Audacious is working. I'll try Falcon. Falcon's been kind of iffy. Every time that I've tried this, it's been kind of hit or miss on whether or not something is going to work. In this case, it seems like Falcon's not going to launch, so if you ever experience something like this, just open a terminal, do sudo apt update to refresh all of your repositories again, and now we're going to try and run Falcon from the terminal. It'll say, trying to load shared libraries. What we're going to do is type sudo apt install -- reinstall and the name of that library. So in this case, it's libevent-2.1. Hit enter. And once that's installed, we'll try running Falcon again. There we go. So now it runs. And now we can actually make a few changes that we want. In this case, I'll change my background real quick. I'll get rid of the show desktop icon here. I like to change my clock to only show the time. And then we're going to change this default Firefox launcher. We'll right click and click properties. We'll hit minus to remove Firefox, and then we'll hit plus, and we'll type in Falcon. Hit add, and then we'll just click it to launch again. There we go. And now we want to enable a login screen. If you're trying to be a little more safe about this, if you do plan on having any kind of personal information on this or any kind of websites, kept logged in, stuff like that, we're just going to disable auto login. So in order to do that, go ahead and open up a terminal. We're going to type in sudo nano /etc /lightdm /lightdm .conf.d /50 50-autologin.conf. If you don't feel like typing all this, you can always type the first few letters and then hit tab. So you can do etc tab light tab light tab again .c tab .d. And there you go. We're just going to put a £sign in front of each of these. And at the very bottom, we're going to type in greeter -hide -users equals false. Press Control O, hit enter to save, and Control X. Now we'll go ahead and reboot to make sure our changes are saved, and also that that login screen does pop up. There we go. So we have our login screen. We'll type in the default login, which for live is evil. Alright, and you can see all of our stuff has stayed exactly as we left it. We can click on Falcon, and I'll show you that it will work every time now, now that that library has been saved correctly. Now, the only other thing I'd recommend, the default passwords and usernames are known because they're online. So root has, root backwards TOOR, live has live backwards EVIL. We're going to change those. So in a terminal, just type in sudo passwd root, hit enter. This is going to let us set a new password. And then same thing with live. So sudo passwd live, type our new password, and there we go. We can test to make sure those passwords took by logging out. And now we can type in our new password, and it's taken. One of the last things that you can try out a little bit, I haven't dabbled with it too much, but there is an option to save any changes that you've made to a new module. So if there's something that isn't already in a module, you can just pack it into a new one, including all of the customizations you've made. So to do that, you just type in sudo save changes and then a module name. So we'll do mychanges.sb, hit enter, and all that's going to do is take any customizations you've made, shove them into a new module, and now that module is going to be in your home folder. What we can do to move that is we can open a root thunar. So sudo thunar. We can click on save changes or my changes. We're going to go ahead and cut that. And then we'll go back to the same modules folder. So we can go to file systems and go to run, init ramfs, memory, data, MiniOS, modules, and we'll go ahead and paste that in there. If you want to make just a bunch of changes all in one go and not have individual modules to remove or add or anything like that, that's another thing you can do too. Just make all of your apps changes, run a save changes, add that one module in, and then reroll the ISO. But that's pretty much the basics of it. Build whatever modules you want, roll your new ISO, make your USB drive or install it to your hard drive just to get persistence going, and then from there, do what you got to do. Like I said, this is not a daily driver that I would recommend kind of by default. I don't recommend storing anything sensitive, especially if it's on a USB. If it ever gets dropped or lost, if someone knows what they're doing, they can get access to your files. So just be safe with it, but overall, it's a very fun system. Very cool to kind of tinker around with and build your own little toolkit and whatnot. So have a blast.